So others are equally important for our survival. Then education. But sometimes we have a sense, oh, I worked so hard, you know, like I got my education because I worked so hard for it. And that is still true, of course, no doubt. Unless we had put in all the work, we wouldn't have gotten as educated as we are now. We paid attention, we did the homework and all that. But there were so many others involved in that, right? Again, I don't know, let's not ask let's not ask ChatGPT or any other AI, like how many people are involved in our education, because that's not like just a bowl of rice. That's so much more. That must be millions and millions. I mean, anyway, directly and then indirectly, of course. No, millions not directly, but indirectly at least millions. Okay, so in that way, yeah, thinking about it, again, this is to remind you of others and self are equal. So we have a sense I'm more important because I'm looking after myself. So in terms of others and myself, for my own survival, I'm more important. No, we are important, of course, but so are others. In terms of our education, we put in all the work. Yeah, that's true. But without others, we couldn't have our education. So the question is, who brings in more? Like, who plays a greater part? I think it's equal, right? In terms of all the food we get. So this is the part where we say equalizing and exchanging self for others. It's basically saying I and others are equal in that sense that they're equally important for my well-being. I'm important, of course, I need to look after myself, but others are equally participating in keeping me alive, in getting me educated. And what else? In number 3, Dharma practice. How can I practice the Dharma for all sentient beings without sentient beings? Right? We talk about doing it for other sentient beings, love, compassion. I mean, loving ourselves. Okay, that's also important. I've talked about it before, this self-love, self-compassion, but also others, which is difficult. I mean, it's not easy. One person, okay, but 2, 3, 4, everyone? Wow, really difficult. So whatever positive qualities, actually all the positive qualities we have now in terms of the Dharma, so love, compassion anyway, and then of course generosity. Generosity. Who can we be generous with if it wasn't for poor people? We're so fortunate to have people who beg for money, for instance. What an amazing and easy opportunity to practice generosity, right? You don't need to go out of your way and look for them. No, they're everywhere, of course, in India, but also in other countries. Except in other countries, they're not easily recognizable. They're so well dressed with their fancy phones. No, I'm kidding. Well, nowadays the beggars in McLeodganj, just one beggar, he has a very fancy smartphone. When he sits there, you know, it's like some. But why not, right? So the point is, yeah, and in Germany as well, I mean, people who beg on the side of the road, they don't necessarily look that poor, but I'm sure it's not, I wouldn't want to do that. It's cold to sit there and beg all day. It's terrible. And so they give us this precious opportunity to practice patience, practice generosity. And then morality. What is morality? Morality is to behave in a way that doesn't harm others. You need others that could potentially be harmed. Now that can be done in the form of vows, but it's always in relation to others. All our practices. I think this is true for anything, like any other religion also, it's about others. Our interactions with others. So morality, patience. I mean, we need some obnoxious people, because who's going to teach us patience? Right? The Buddhas, they're too kind and compassionate. I mean, if we needed them, that they would also manifest as obnoxious, so no problem in that area. But in actuality, like the people we're trying to avoid, they're usually the ones that are the best teachers for patience. Right? The most annoying one, the ones So seeing something positive in them, we can learn that. And then practice patience. But patience, again, doesn't mean you allow them to walk all over you. That's a huge distinction. It's just a mental state. Externally, you can still go, stop being so annoying or whatever, but you say it out of compassion, not out of resentment. So you need patience to say it with the right kind of attitude, which is really hard. It's not easy. It's easy to know how to be kind with patience, with compassion and so forth. It's hard to sometimes also tell them the truth and show them the boundaries. That is really difficult. Your question about that. That is it's not an easy thing. I guess when people have children, they learn it. You have to. You're responsible for a living being, right? You can't just let them do whatever they want. So, but of course, if you can do it with your own child, doesn't mean you can do it with your neighbor. It's different. Some people are very intimidating. But still, we can learn, and do it with kindness. Doing it with kindness, and even we don't need to verbally say something. Sometimes we can just show our disagreement, right? They say something, we don't respond. Pretty obvious. If I were to agree, I went like that. If I don't agree, I could go like, that's like, not sure at least, right? Not sure, or just kind of look downwards and just don't react. And I know if someone doesn't agree with what I say, they don't say anything, they just look on the floor. I know they disagree. So it's okay. I'm not offended. That, like in that way. But I don't know exactly, it's probably good to have an example. I mean, I'm thinking of people who say things that I don't agree with. I can show my disagreement by just not reacting, for instance. Usually we're very quick to just nod or somehow show our agreement, but if we don't agree, we, instead of saying, no, I don't agree, we can also, or we could say it, right? Anyway, but patience, going back to patience. Yeah, so, wow, we're so lucky we have so many obnoxious. No, they're not always obnoxious, but they can be sometimes. I mean, not everyone finds them obnoxious, but if we come across someone we personally find obnoxious, it's a potential friend. Yeah, could become like a friend anyway, if we're patient with them and give it time and get to know them. There are stories like, for instance, Geshema Kelsang Wangmo in her book, Cave in the Mountain, I think it's called. Cave in the Snow Mountain, yeah. Right? Cave in the Snow. Oh, Cave in the Snow. Oh, sorry. Cave in the Snow. So in there she talks about this Christian nuns. She describes how Christian nuns learned to live together, and there was one very famous Christian nun apparently. She joined a nunnery where, are these Franciscan nuns? When they don't talk. They take a vow of silence and don't speak. And maybe they only speak at certain times of the day. I think it depends on the order. Anyway, so in that particular nunnery, there was one nun who made a clicking sound. I'm still not sure what that sounds like. What kind of sound? Wait, who makes a clicking sound? An involuntary clicking sound. Pardon?
Kind of a code, maybe.
A code. Yeah, I don't know. She talks. I think she talks about clicking sound, doesn't she? Say like there's a funny clicking sound. And this nun was so annoyed, this very special, who became this very special nun. But she decided to practice patience and sought out the presence of that nun, because she realized she was getting impatient, so she tried to practice, I guess. That's how I remember. Please correct me if I'm wrong. That's how I remember the story. It was many years ago that I read it. And then in the end, they became really good friends. Yeah. This also happened. I'm not going to say the name now, but I have a really, really good friend I love dearly. The first time I met her, I thought they were so annoying. I thought she was so annoying. She so annoyed me. And I was so resentful of her. I thought, oh, she's just such a weird person. And then she became this really good friend of mine. I'm so embarrassed to just, towards myself that I could ever have thought, I would have ever thought she was not an amazing person. I still think she's an amazing person. But she really annoyed me on our first encounter. So here we go. Such a good lesson. So I thought she was one way and she was very different. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, but this patience, and it's so important. I mean, it's such an important quality. And then also, something else that makes us equal is that on an ordinary level, we all want the same thing. On a conventional and ordinary level, we all want the same thing. We all want to be free from unpleasant experiences, whatever those mean to us. So that's not the point. What is unpleasant to one person may be pleasant to someone else, okay. But the emotional response that we want, that whatever we find pleasant, we want to have that, and we don't want the unpleasant. So that kind of response is equally the same. And that is true also for animals. Try to push an ant around, If you push, with an ant, it's trying to avoid any kind of, if you push the ant like in this way or that way. I'm not saying do that, but, they're also trying to avoid problems. They don't want to avoid being, pushed in one direction, then they go the other way or whatever. Insects or whatever else, all trying to avoid pain. Yeah, so in that way, we're all equal in wanting to be happy and free from suffering. No one wants to experience even the slightest discomfort. We're all trying to avoid that. So we have that in common with everyone. And then lastly, we're all equal in not existing inherently on an ultimate level. We all lack inherent existence. We all believe in that self, in that oh so precious self, when in actuality there is a self, but that's not the one we're obsessing over. There is a self, there is a conventional self, and we'll go more into it. But there's not from its own side, the self that the way it appears to us doesn't exist. So we're equal in that way. But to say a little bit more about it, like for instance, I have the thought, I is this, and you are you. You are others. But actually, if it wasn't for you, there couldn't be an I, right? I and you. If it wasn't someone to distinguish myself from, then I wouldn't even have an I, because I and you or I and others are dependent on each other, just as long and short are. And secondly, from your perspective, you are I's. There are actually a lot more I's than this I. There are a lot more I's. From my perspective, there are a lot more beings that refer to themselves as I. So in terms of numbers, I'm outnumbered. I'm outnumbered. Why do I think I'm the only I when everyone else is also an I and I'm just one and there are many? Does that make sense logically? Right? I mean, I have a sense like it's not just about the word. I mean, it could be my own language, or in Tibetan it's nga, in German it's ich, in English it's I, in Hebrew it's ani. All right, yeah, ani. Ani lo yodat. I know a few words. I actually know more Hebrew than I know Hindi, embarrassingly. Never mind. So the point is, therefore, I and others, like here and there, they depend on each other, as I just said, plus the sense I. Well, everyone is an I. So what makes me more important? But it goes more, it goes beyond that. So let's look at that I once again. And now I'm going to do it more and more, that I bring in more and more emptiness. So one way to look at it is when I write a letter, for instance. Let's say I'm writing a letter. My hand is writing a letter. So then I think I'm writing a letter. Is that right? Is it correct to say I'm writing a letter when my hand is writing a letter? Actually, my hand is writing the letter, right? But I say I'm writing a letter. Is that correct or not? It's correct. When my hand waves, is it okay to say I wave? Yeah, that's correct. When my mind meditates, is it correct to say I meditate? Yeah. But how does that I appear? Doesn't it feel as if when my hand writes, there's also some separate I that's doing the same thing? Doesn't it feel that way? Like I'm writing a letter, so my hand is writing a letter, and then the way I perceive of the I, there seems to be also a kind of I that's also being picked up and is now writing a letter. Or when my legs are walking, I think I'm walking, doesn't it appear to the mind there's also somewhere an I that's also doing the walking? Or when I meditate, I think I'm meditating. I'm watching my own mind. Doesn't it feel like there's the mind that meditates and the spy, the I, that is now watching the meditation? Doesn't it feel that way? Right? It does, doesn't it? So there's a sense, it's not just that I say I write when my hand does, right? There's a sense there's more to it. So for instance, I say I touch the table. I touch the table. When I touch, what actually I touch is a part of the table, right? I only touch a part of the table. And the part of the table is not the table. And still I say I touch the table. The part I touch is not the table. This corner is not the table, is it? My hand is not the I. And still, when my hand does something, I say the I does it. How is that correct? Really, when we think about it, my hand is not the I. How can I say the I does it when something that is not the I does so? Isn't that actually wrong? When I burn a piece of this fabric, I say the fabric got burnt. No, it's just a piece of the fabric. It's not the whole fabric. Because this piece is not the fabric. I mean, when I think of the fabric, I think about, or the tablecloth, let's put it that way. So the tablecloth, I burn a piece of this tablecloth, and I say I burned the tablecloth. Is that actually correct? Is it or is it not? It's correct? Okay. So when I say I touched this table, but I didn't touch the table, I touched something that's not the table. Is that the table? Yes and no. Oh, well, unfortunately, yes and no are directly contradictory, right? Can't be both. Anyway, how do you define a table?
How would I find a table?
Define.
How to define a table? Something that has 4 legs and a plank.
4 legs and a plank. So if I take a dog and I adjust some kind of mattress or a plank on its back, is that a table? It's got 4 legs and a plank. Pardon? So there's some tables that have kind of heads. Or a chop off the head. Oh no, sorry, that's nasty. Yeah, sorry. No, okay, yes.
I think it's about separating experience and language.
Experience, okay, separating experience and language. Can we separate experience and language?
Your experience is that you're touching something.
Yeah, but
If,
yeah.
for example, I label it as I touch, I touch the table, but no, I mean, no, I'm touching like something.
There's not a table. So I'm actually wrong to say I'm touching a table. That would be wrong to say, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be wrong to say I'm touching the table when all I'm touching is a part of the table? That actually would be wrong. Wouldn't it be wrong? What do you think? It's wrong. Okay. So, what's your name?
My name? Gal.
Gal. I'm saying, I see Gal. I'm lying. I don't see Gal. I only see a part of Gal. I see a part that is not Gal. Her face is not Gal. Is Gal her face? Right? I see her shoulders, the front of her, not even her, I can't even say I see the front of her body. I only see the upper part, the shoulders, the arms, and only one side of the arms, plus her face. That I can say I see. Part of her hair. I don't see her head as much as her hair. It's covered. Not like in my case. All right. So do I see gal? Is it Sigal or is it Gal? Is that an extra? I know a girl called Sigal, but you're not Sigal. No? Gal. Okay. I thought it was short for Sigal. All right. Anyway, so do I see Gal? Galness. I see galness. Galiut. I can say that in Hebrew. Galiut. What is galiut? La? Galiut is like the galness, like tableness. Galiut. Some galiut, he said galness, and I know how to say that in Hebrew. Nachon? Pardon?
You are advanced in Hebrew.
I'm improving, that's right. Yeah, I learned so many words because usually, how do you say it in Israel? I forget now how to say that. I can't say it any longer. How do you say that in Echamrim? Echamrim? Echamrim, yeah. I hear that all the time. Like, what does that mean? And then I hear these words, and so that's how I remember some of the words. So I remember like table, liut. So you add liut like tableness. So you see the tableness, or you see the galness. What is galness? What does that even mean, galness, right? Or shubhamness, right? Yeah. What does that even mean? But I say I see someone. I say we see this. I see this person. But actually, I always see something that is not that person. So how can I say I see that person? Are we wrong? No, we're not wrong. Why not?
Because it is that person that we see, and everybody agrees around us that we see. If I were to say that I saw Gal in the class today, then I'm sure everybody else would also agree that they saw Gal in the class today.
But if everyone thinks it's gal and actually she's not gal, she's sigal, we all get it wrong. And just because everyone agree, it makes her gal. Let's say she was actually sigal. She was Leora, someone else, right? A different girl altogether. Now I'm showing off with the names I know. I don't know that many names in Hebrew, but I know the name Leora. So actually, in actuality, it's Leora. But we all agree we saw gal. Are we right or not? So it makes that Leora, or that makes her gal, even in actuality she's Leora. Let's say she's actually, now I'm getting confused. So she's actually Leora, but we mistakenly think she's gal. So just because we all agree she's gal, does that make her gal?
No, not
No, right?
clarified from her side later on.
She could be wrong herself. No, I'm kidding. But no, the thing is like, just agreement is not enough, is it? I mean, 500 years ago, people thought planet Earth, this planet was round, it was flat. Did it make it flat just because everyone agreed? And planet Earth couldn't reaffirm, couldn't say, oh, sorry, by the way, I happen to not be flat. That didn't work, right? So, just by consent, that's not enough, is it? Just because we agree, that's not enough. So how can we say I see gal when all I see is something that's not gal?
And what we see is also gal.
Pardon?
What we see is also gal.
What we see is gal.
Also gal. I mean, some part you may not be seeing, but the part you're seeing is also gal.
Her face is gal. Her face is a person. Is whoever gal, doesn't gal have to be a person? What's your name?
Deepak.
Deepak. Oh, Deepak, I know that name. I can remember. Deepak. Deepak. Is Deepak a person? Yeah. Is whoever is Deepak necessarily a person? I don't know whether you call your animals Deepak, but I don't know.
Lamp.
Pardon?
Yeah. A lamp.
Ah. Oh, that's a nice name. You're the enlightened, the Deepak. Okay, so everything, but whatever is a Deepak is either a lamp or a person. Could be anything?
Depends on the name. It could be anything else. It could be a book or
Deepak could be a book. Okay, we could name a book Deepak. All right, okay, I agree with that. So Deepak is not necessarily a person. So your face is also Deepak.
and this person whom we call Deepak.
Well, no. That's not my question. I agree with you. It's the face of the person we call Deepak. But is your face Deepak? Is your little finger Deepak?
It is also Deepak.
It's also Deepak. There are a lot of Deepaks in front of me. And trust me. Wow. There's so many Deepaks in front of me. There's 10 Deepaks on every hand. 10 Deepaks.
The part of Deepak.
Ah, part of Deepak. So it's not Deepak. So your face is not Deepak. It's a part of Deepak, but it's not Deepak. In fact, whatever is a part of Deepak can't be Deepak, right? Whatever is a part of X is not X. Do you agree?
Yeah.
The part and the whole are not identical, are they? So Deepak is the whole. In this case, it's not the book, it's not the lamp, but it's you. So Deepak is the whole, and its parts are not identical to Deepak. That's why we use words like of, the part of. Therefore, your face is not Deepak. Do you agree? Thus, I don't see Deepak right now. I see a part of Deepak, but I don't see Deepak. Does anyone see Deepak? No one. No one. Do you see anything? What do you see?
I see Deepak.
You see Deepak, okay. Okay, everyone else see Deepak? Look at him. But what you see is actually not Deepak, is it? So, how does that work? If he's only a part, then we're wrong. Basically, we're wrong saying, I see Deepak, aren't we? Because we actually see a part. Yes, Deepak?
Are we just not nitpicking language?
Are we just debating semantics? That's what you're saying. Okay, but then tell me, what is Deepak? The thing is like, look, we use language to think and to communicate. Communication is one thing, but our thoughts, the mind that is constantly chattering, the narrator, the one that is responsible for how we see the world. Do you agree? Those are our thoughts. How do our thoughts work? We use language. For instance, right now you may be thinking in English, but if you had a long conversation with someone in Hindi, you'd be thinking in Hindi. So we can even distinguish between the languages we think in. We do think in the language. So it's not about semantics itself, it's the way we look at the world. It's important, isn't it? So whether I see Deepak or not, based on the fact that I saw Deepak, I don't know, if I think Deepak stole something, I may go to the police and start that whole procedure. So it's kind of important. Or, I don't know, whatever else, something Deepak knows how to explain emptiness. I want to meet Deepak, and I can say I just met Deepak. Oh my God, I'm so pleased he can explain it to me. You see, it's relevant.
Yeah, but if you saw my face and my hand feeling something, you still go to the police and say that Deepak stole something.
Exactly. But isn't that wrong? No, you said it's just semantics, but I'm saying it's more than just semantic, it's relevant. Because saying this, that, and the other, and thinking so, may make me do all sorts of things, and it starts like a whole investigation. I'm just, trying to make a point here, saying that I can change a lot of situations around because I had that thought. I mean, all my actions are based on my thoughts, and my thoughts are based on the labels I use. And so language is very important, right? But when we think about it, I'm just debating right now. I'm just doing this debate thing. So, therefore, my question is, am I really seeing Deepak? Yes.
I see Deepak's back.
You see Deepak's back?
I don't see all of Deepak, or I don't see Deepak.
Is there anyone who sees all of Deepak? I hope not.
Probably.
Because when you don't see when you see the outside, you don't see the inside. I hope no one sees the inside. I mean, it'd be terrible. So, well, terrible means like if you had to open him, so that's why terrible. But yeah, but okay, so you see something else. Okay, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
Back.
Yeah. Yes.
that he was here,
Yes.
and I can ask him to clarify that. So even though I see only his back,
Mhm.
it's a deduction.
That's a deduction because Deepak doesn't just have his bag come here. Right? So Deepak, the whole person comes, yes. All right, that was very carefully formulated, very good. So just by seeing a certain part of him, you know the whole person is here. Yes, that I agree with. But my question is more, are we wrong? Are we wrong in saying Deepak is here? When in actuality, no, sorry, are we wrong in saying Deepak, I see Deepak or I saw Deepak, are we wrong in saying that when in actuality we always see something that is not Deepak? I just wonder whether it's right or wrong. Should I rephrase it? I rephrase it, okay. Is it wrong to say I see Deepak when every time I have that thought or I communicate it with others, what I'm actually seeing is always something that is not Deepak? Is that therefore incorrect? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that I think the example of like the tableness that you hear a lot of Buddhists talk about, like if you start removing legs of a table or part of a table, at what point does it lose its tableness?
Where did you hear that from? Where did you hear that from?
I've heard it from Sam Harris, I've heard it from Joseph Goldstein, the book I'm reading now, Lama Sura Das,
yeah.
Awakening the Buddha.
They all use the table example?
Yeah, they all use the table
interesting.
example, and it's like, okay, you have on the table the four legs, right?
Yeah.
If you start picking away different parts of the table, at what point does it cease to be the table? And that's tricky, where you burn half the table, is it no longer a table? Like, where is the tableness?
Yeah.
And I think that example,
Well, I thought you were going to go into another example that one of my teachers uses usually. So it was similar to what you said, but let's say you have a table that is light enough to pick up, right? Pick up. So you hold, let's say, the leg of the table. You hold of that one leg of the table. So we all agree you're holding a table. This goes beyond, or goes past the question I just asked. Okay, let's say we all agreed when we see a part of Deepak, we see Deepak. Now let's say you hold the leg of a table and someone was now to disassemble the other three tables plus the surface. Is this person still holding a table? But they never let go of what they originally carried. They're still holding on to the same thing. They're still holding on to the same thing, aren't they? So they hold on to the leg of a, so they hold on to the leg of a table. So they were holding on to the table, in other words. If me saying I saw a face, the face of Deepak allows me to say I saw Deepak, similarly, it's okay for me to say when I hold the leg of a table, for me to say I hold the table. And if then in the meantime it's disassembled and all I'm holding is this particular object, it's still the leg of the table, isn't it? So I must still be holding the table. But there is no table any longer, is there?
Because it doesn't fit the conventional definition of the table. The definition of a table.
But I'm still holding the same thing.
Yes, but the thing which you're holding doesn't fit the definition of a table any longer.
It doesn't, okay, it doesn't, no longer. But is it still the table's leg? Is it still, am I still holding the leg of a table?
Yes, the table which was earlier, which is no longer now, you're holding its leg.
But just straight without saying that used to be and so forth, just am I still holding the leg of a table? No. Okay, so in order for the leg, in order for the leg of the table to be there, you must have a table. In order for there to be a chicken, the chicken must still be alive, right? In order for there to be a chicken, the chicken must be alive. A dead chicken is still a chicken? A dead human is a human being?
I mean, instead of still dishes like tandoori chicken, so that's
Yeah, that's what I was going to get at. If you eat chicken, although it's dead, right? He said like there's no longer, what I'm holding on to is no longer the leg of a table. Well, then when I eat chicken, am I no longer eating chicken?
You're no longer eating a live chicken, you're eating a dead chicken.
I'm eating a dead chicken. But is a dead chicken a chicken? A dead chicken is a chicken? A dead human is a human being? A decayed human being is still... Doesn't a human being need to have a mind to be a human being? A dead human being has a mind. Doesn't a human being have to have both mind and body?
But we wouldn't refer them.
I love doing that.
Define it.
Pardon?
The definition is changing for everybody, it seems like. You know, some people are considering a dead human being to be a human being, but then...
But that is not that difficult.
for everybody.
Does a living being, is a human being a living being? A living being. Is a human being a living being? But there's some humans who are not living beings because they're not alive. Dead humans are humans according to you, right? You just said a dead human is... So sometimes I agree with you, it's a matter of definition. But in other cases, I don't think it's a matter of definition. Like, either a human being is a living being or not. Does a human being have to have a mind or not? Doesn't a human being have to have a mind? Like a photo of a human is not a human, right? So, okay, of course that's different to just the human body. But the human, like just a human body without a human, that is a human being? Is that a convention? I mean, like, is it just a matter of opinion or not? Anyway, I'm just kidding. I just want to challenge a little bit. You know, like, we never question this. This is just the beginning of emptiness. And there's, of course, an answer to it. But it's initially a little hard to wrap your head around. I mean, when I ask you, what is Deepak? Is Deepak just one part of him? No, it's all of his parts. Don't we agree? Actually, at least I should say all of his parts. I mean, is that true? Is Deepak all of his parts? It feels like it can't be one or two parts. But does that mean Deepak is all of his parts? Not that either.
No.
So Deepak is not a single part. He's not two parts, but he's also not all of his parts. Huh? So what makes... How can I say I see Deepak if he's not, and all I see is parts? I don't just see one part. I see more parts. So I see many parts, and therefore I say, there's Deepak. I can say Deepak sits on the cushion. There's only some parts that sit on the cushion. His ears don't, right? Yeah? So is that correct or not?
But then going by this definition, will you ever be able to see Deepak wholly?
Exactly. Do you ever see anything? Yeah, in some cases you could say the black of this side. Black, that's okay, because you don't have to see the black of this watch, like all of its parts. So we can say that in certain cases. Can we say we are in India? We're not in India. Have you been to India? Has anyone ever been to India? No one has ever been to India, because he's not been in all places. Right? That is so absurd. But India does refer to the whole country. India is the entire country. So how come? Right? And then I, when I refer to myself as I, is that totally wrong? Because there's so many parts of myself that I'm not even aware they exist. Yes, please?
Can we say that India is just an idea which exists in our collective consciousness?
Ideas. Can you travel to ideas? Can you be in ideas? Can you eat ideas? What is an idea? Is an idea mental or physical or something else? What is an idea? How do you define an idea? Pardon?
It's mental.
Oh, so India is mental. Right? If you said India is an idea and an idea is mental, therefore India must be mental. So it's not a physical place. It is.
It's like all categories, right? That's what makes it easier for us to identify. that's how we perceive things. It's just group, and then we perceive it as a whole. Like that's what Gestalt psychologists also said. The whole is greater than sum of its parts. So it's more valuable. You just add something, and if you put two, like some dots together, you just see them as line rather than dots separately. Right? Because that makes it easier for us to perceive.
Okay, so even if it's easier just perceiving dots instead of perceiving the whole thing, but I don't disagree with that. I'm just wondering, by seeing a part, does that qualify? Is that enough for us to say, I see the thing?
So we, in common use of language,
Mm-hmm.
we use it interchangeably, whether it's the part or the whole. And based on the context, there's a kind of shared understanding of what you mean. So when I say I have been to India,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm from India,
Mm-hmm.
obviously I'm not from
Everywhere.
every part of India, I'm from a particular part.
Yes.
But there's an understanding that it means that I'm from a part of India.
Okay.
Or when I say I see Deepak,
Mm-hmm.
I've obviously seen, based on this kind of discussion, a part of Deepak, but there's an understanding. I think that's also down to language, isn't it?
Okay, there's an understanding there.
That suggests the context of whether it's a part or a whole. And like when you say I'm holding a table, and then you say I'm holding the leg of a table, it's the context which kind of indicates whether you're referring to the whole or the part, no?
Okay, but can we still, even though we understand each other, that doesn't necessarily mean it's right or wrong. We apply logic here. First of all, I ask you, what does it mean to be Deepak? And once we've defined what it means, so even though we may communicate in that way, and it's okay. I mean, when Deepak says, I just had some chicken, I know I know he didn't go to the chicken shed and bit into one of the chickens. I know that didn't happen. I know he ate it. Sorry, I'm sorry for laughing, but like strictly speaking, a chicken is an animal and an animal is alive. And if eating chicken actually means you bite into a live chicken, but I know that's not the case in Deepak's case. So here, I know what he means, but the question is, you see, sometimes we use language, but it's inconsistent. There are a lot of examples. Now, when we debate, we first make sure we're not inconsistent. To give you an example of that, there is an example, for instance, a white horse. This is the classic example when we start debating. It's the debate of a white horse. Now, a white horse has the color white. And whatever is white must be a color, right? Whatever is blue is a color, whatever is red, those are colors. Whatever is round is necessarily a shape. Now first, if we agree on that, whatever is white is necessarily a color. A horse is a living being. And colors and living beings are different things, right? Do you agree on that?
Yeah.
Now, if I present a debate, I ask you, it follows that the white horse is a horse. You agree. And then I ask you, it follows the white horse is blue. You say, no, it's white. It follows the white horse is white. Well, it follows the white horse is not a horse, because it's not a living being, because it's a color, because it's white. So you see, that's like one of the first debates. So either the white horse is white or it's not. Strictly speaking, in everyday life, we can say the white horse is white. No one is not going to punish us or whatever. Everyone understands what we mean, but strictly speaking, and that's what we're trying to do here when we do philosophy, when we discuss philosophy, a white horse is not white. It has the color. It possesses the color, which happens to be white, but a white horse is not white. So we do use language, sometimes quite loosely. Right now I can't think of an example, but every now and then I'm thinking, oh, that's just one of those examples where we use language loosely. Oh yeah, one example is actually with the chicken. Actually, you see, every whole is dependent on its parts. To have a part of something, you must have the whole, and to have the whole, you must have the parts. And chicken, I don't know, maybe you disagree, dead chicken is still chicken. But honestly, really, does that make sense, that a dead chicken? I mean, a living being, an animal, must have a mind. Yeah, it must have a mind. So how far do you go? For instance, if the chicken, like each atom, that is a part of a chicken, and then if the atoms spread out everywhere and they become part of another body, are they still the parts of a chicken? I mean, honestly, if we think of our own body, what is a part of my body right now was probably a part of your body in the past. Just the atoms. Am I making sense? The atoms don't get lost. They just regroup. So we've died in the past, our body decayed, or was even burned, but let's say it decayed. So then you have these atoms that continue on existing. They go into the soil. They become part of, I don't know, a tree, and then part of the fruits. You eat the fruit, and da-da-da-da. And then that particular atom may become part of your body. Yeah? So is that still, that atom that previously used to belong to me, which is no longer that, is that still a part of me? Or is it now the part of someone else? So with the leg, you agreed saying that this is still the leg of a table, although there's no longer a table. Then that would mean the parts of my body now, they're still Deepak's part, for instance, because at some point they were. So therefore, when you no longer have the whole, then you no longer have the parts. And then with the chicken, yeah, so just because you have a part of the chicken doesn't mean you have a chicken, or you have a part that used to be a chicken doesn't mean you have a chicken now. And therefore, I think it's, in terms of the way we use language, it's not correct to say, I eat chicken right now. It's okay, I'm not saying don't use that, but in actuality, we're eating the flesh of something that used to be a chicken. I think it's more correct. Now, it's not a game so much as in, before we start talking about the phenomena being labeled, because as you probably all know, we say phenomena only exist because they're labeled. And that is really hard to understand. That is even more difficult to understand than emptiness. They say that first you have to understand emptiness to be able to understand that phenomena are merely labeled. And it takes some time to get used to it. And I said I start slowly now to introduce you to these ideas. I won't bombard you with everything. And one of the first things would be, first of all, what makes Deepak Deepak? What makes Gal Gal? What makes everyone who they are? And to be also a little bit more precise in the way we use language. White horse is not white. And likewise, we don't eat chicken. It makes sense, doesn't it? Because otherwise, if we eat chicken, there's still a chicken. Yeah, then you have, then a chicken doesn't have to be a living being. Right? Then just the corpse is still a chicken. I don't know, is that ordinarily correct? We say it's the chicken, it's the corpse of such and such. But we wouldn't say such and such is still there. Yeah? Like, would you say, for instance, Kelsang Wangmo, if I died now, my body was there, would you say Kelsang Wangmo is still there? No. Still Kelsang Wangmo, still a human being called Kelsang Wangmo, but we associate Kelsang Wangmo with a mind. So the mind has to be there. So it's no longer Kelsang Wangmo, but it's still a human being. That would be weird, wouldn't it? Is it still Kelsang Wangmo's arm? No. Strictly speaking, a severed head of a snake, that's what is mentioned in the texts, is not the head of a snake. It's the head of something that used to be a snake. Yeah. So anyway, that's just, but of course we could agree in a different way, and it just sounds a little absurd, I think. Because if you say, my human corpse is still a human, then there's no reason not to say that's not Kelsang Wangmo. You could say Kelsang Wangmo is still there. It's Kelsang Wangmo's leg. Right? Okay. Anyway, but we're still back to how come, right? What makes a table a table? How do you define a table such that other objects are not tables? How do you distinguish really between things? Because the distinction seems to be so clear. But that's a minor issue. But then this whole issue about what we see, when in actuality we always see something that is not bad. Right? How do we make it work? Any suggestions? I just want to insist, go on about that a little longer before I let it go, and we'll talk about it again. But just to kind of question, what do you think? So you're right, although I understand when you say Deepak, I know what you mean, but I can still question whether it's correct or not. Even though it's a convention. But Deepak is not a convention. Who's Deepak? I'm talking about the person. I'm not talking about the label. I'm asking more, is it used correctly? Is it used correctly or not? Any idea? Is the term, am I using the term correctly? Am I wrong to say I see Deepak?
Yes and no.
Oh, you can't get both. That's the thing. Either yes or no are directly contradictory. So
on one level you are.
On one level you are.
On the other level you are just seeing parts of me.
So on one level do I see Deepak? On one level. On which level? So okay, I see what you're saying. So on one level I see parts of Deepak. Yes, that's not problem. But can you explain that other level by way of which I see Deepak?
The conventional linguistic level.
The conventional linguistic level.
I don't know the level.
Yeah. Oh, no, I think I guess what I understand. Are you in agreement on that? Okay.
The question needs a context as well, right?
Pardon?
The question needs a context as well.
The question is the context.
Yeah, because when he says yes and no, when you say no, what you're saying is totally right in a certain context. But when I'm using a normal language, then the context is the context is a normal language, then it's a yes. To the same question, the answer is a yes.
In other words, to be precise, no, I'm seeing a part. To be less precise, just in terms of conventions, I see Deepak. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, that's what I heard you saying. So being precise, I don't see Deepak. So which of the two is reality? Being precise or not being precise? Which one is in accordance with reality? I mean, yes, everyone understands, but just because everyone understands doesn't make it correct, right? So, for instance, when I say the sun rises, is that correct? But everyone understands. Does the sun rise every morning?
No.
Who said yes?
I said yes.
It rises?
Yeah.
The sun literally rises? Literally? No. So, right, we use that convention, but it doesn't make it correct. So is that the same as saying I see Deepak? Yeah, actually I don't see Deepak. It's actually incorrect, but I use it anyway. So the sun rises. Wow, that goes back to the olden days when we thought the sun was actually moving around the earth. So we still use it, and no one is changing all these poems and correcting us. But in actuality, it's incorrect. So it's me saying I see Deepak the same as me saying the sun rises when it actually is not true. It's actually everything we say, basically. I see this, I do that, I write a letter. Is that all incorrect in the same way as I'm saying the sun is rising? No. That would be absurd. That would be absurd, right? So actually your original argument, okay, precisely speaking, no, you don't see it. But we understand what is meant. Conventionally, it's okay. Well, then it would also be correct to say the sun literally rises. Right? Or without saying literally. I mean, literally or rises. I mean, is it correct or not? There's one answer. Okay, so that one didn't work.
When you're on the earth,
Yeah.
for you the truth is that the sun is rising.
Pardon?
If you're on the earth and
Yeah.
you see the sun, for you the sun is rising. That's the truth for you in that particular context. And when you're
And
not
that
on,
makes it true?
yeah.
If I have an optical illusion, right? A mirage. I see a mirage in Delhi. Beautiful road, made for the cricket games a long time ago. You probably weren't born. No, I remember when I came back, it was for this cricket event. Oh, these beautiful roads, black and shiny. But they had these mirages, right? When the sun shone, you could really see that mirage. So for you, that's true, right? Does that mean there's a mirage?
No.
Does that mean there's water? Because for you, from where you're standing, it looks like water. So therefore, is there water? Because for you, there seems to be water. If from your perspective, it looks as if the sun were rising, that makes it true that the sun is rising, then I'm asking if from your perspective, that very shiny new road, when it looks like there's water, is there really water? Because from your perspective, there is. Yes? No. Right? Right? Just because from my perspective that's what it looks like, it doesn't make it true. Because otherwise all these optical illusions would not be optical illusions. They would truly be there. So of course, yes, we say the sun rises because it is an optical illusion. But now we know that it is that in the past. And we haven't changed the terminology yet. Okay, it's enough for today. Enough emptiness. Yeah. So think about this. You could discuss it in a discussion group. Please have that discussion. That's your topic. Again, I want to, of course, ask you to possibly share. And I'm not done yet, but I might as well. We still have time, but I want to mention it anyway, since otherwise I may forget. So please, for the discussion group tonight, again, the question that I always ask you to at least briefly discuss is there anything you found helpful so far? Well, let me just ask this. Is this question in the first place helpful? To ask you to debate, to discuss that? Or is it actually, doesn't really make a difference? Pardon? It's helpful to hear that from each other? Yeah. Is it? Okay, good. Because otherwise, if you don't find it helpful, I did that in the last group, and the feedback was they found it helpful, but everyone is different. So in case it wasn't, I would change it. All right, so to briefly discuss how we can maybe integrate whatever we learned into our daily life. But secondly, we can use someone else. It doesn't have to be Deepak or Deepak. Gal, or what's your name? Shabiri. Shabiri. Okay, Shabiri. So are you seeing Shabiri? Right? Again, same thing. And then discuss that. What does it mean to see something? How does it make it valid or not? Think of the example, the table, the leg, possibly eating chicken, sorry for those who are vegetarians, but then also the rising sun, for instance. The sun, does it rise or not? Yes, please?
There are also cases that we do not label the same things the same. Like I will give a radical example.
Yes.
Without diving into politics, but like different perspectives.
Oh, yes, okay.
So I give this example only to show different perspective, but let's take Israel and Palestine, for example.
Say what?
Israel and Palestine, for example,
Israel and
in the
Palestine, yeah.
perspective. There are people that say Gaza plus West Bank plus Israel, it's only Israel, there is no Palestine.
Okay.
There are people that say all this entire land, this is Palestine.
Okay.
There are people that say West Bank and Gaza, this is Palestine. Now, and there are different people that say different things, and when you say what is Israel, what is Palestine, there are people who must say, okay, there is no Israel, there is no Palestine, so even like label this part of land, there are many people that don't agree even about that. So like this is from first place, even don't agree about the label. And now you can say, okay, these arguments are based on this one or this one, but and still like they see the same thing, but really label it very differently.
Nice. What's your name?
Ronnie.
Ronnie. Okay, what did Ronnie just say? Interesting. Yeah, please?
I just wanted to add on what Ronnie just said.
Yes.
Just one.
Oh, yeah, okay.
since a long time I have been wanting to say this one sentence, and Ronnie actually spoke about it.
Yes.
So I thought I might add a bit into it.
Yes.
I thought that since the perception itself is varying like everywhere, we are not sure about the perception, so how could the label be perfect? So the label depends on the perception. So both are getting faulty. They are not, they're interdependent. If that's not, there's no surety in perception, how can there be surety in labeling? So
Okay.
everything is,
Let me just make sure I understand. What's your name?
I'm Geeta. Geeta.
Dita.
G-E-E-T-A.
Dita.
Yeah.
D.
G.
G.
G for goat.
Ah, Bhagavad, no, which letter? G. Gita. Gita, yes, okay. Okay, Gita and Ronnie, what both of them said. So let me repeat to make sure I understand. So Ronnie just said, what is Palestine? What is Israel? Right? Some would say all of what's now usually referred to as Israel, including the parts that are Gaza and West Bank, those are Israel. Others would say, no, all of this land, that's Palestine, there is no Israel. And then they're saying that those areas like Gaza and West Bank, they're Palestine, and whatever's in between, that is Israel. Okay, so what is it? What is Palestine? What is Israel? Right? So already, whoa, very difficult. And then Gita, what she added was saying, well, not only that, we don't even know whether our perception is correct. Because first you need to have a perception, and then based on that, we can decide what we call this, that, and the other. So our conventional labels, right? Shabiri, you said like conventional kind of label. So therefore, we don't even know, how can we even use language when in actuality, we can't even trust what we're seeing. All right, taking it further apart. So just before, it seemed very easy. This is this, this is this, this is that. And you've all very, very much contributed to taking it all apart. As in like, yeah, just now, especially with the last two statements saying, or many of the other statements, just convention and etc. I mean, everything you said, and just agreeing, that's enough. You've also contributed, just nodding, you did. And then, of course, Ronnie, where is Palestine? Where is Israel? What is Israel? What is Palestine, right? And of course, what we see, do we see the same thing? Does everyone see something else? Do I see something else at different parts of the day? So how can I use, right? Right? Yeah, Gita does the spy movement just now.
So the perception is varying every second.
Yeah, perception is varying, is different every second. It's never the same, depending on how we feel as well, how we see things. Yeah, that definitely there's a subtle difference. Plus, what does physics tells us? There's nothing out there existing the way we think, right? Like colors and so forth. That we usually believe anyway. We haven't really maybe come to really fully understanding it, but we can all believe it, right?
Yes.
All right. So what's really there? How can we still say something exists? But we all heard we do exist and others exist. So it's really nice to just take it apart. Okay, so for tonight, you're welcome to take things apart. And you can do so further. Now I'm just repeating what we did in class, and then you may bring your own arguments, taking apart this solidity in different ways. Yeah, wonderful. Taking apart is important. And then I hope I can put it back together. All right, great. Let's go back a little bit to this text, to this technique. And again, now we didn't have the time. There's too little time to meditate on. We'll do the meditation again tomorrow, okay? But yeah, so from the point of view of ultimate reality, there's only an I because there are others. Yeah. So that's actually, I started off with that and then took it in a different direction. But that's not necessary to take it in the direction that I just took it. But just saying I. How can there be I if there's no others? How can I perceive myself to be so important if only in comparison to others? And actually our identity is very much important on others. Who we are. We compare ourselves constantly with others without anything to compare it to. I could say I'm like this, I'm like that. And when we say I, there's so much more to I. There's like the sense of identity that I connect this I with, right? I mean, when I say I, it goes along with certain characteristics that I've identified within myself. And I'm not saying that all of them are wrong. I'm pretty sure I'm conceited about some of the qualities that I may believe I have, which I don't. But just in general, the characteristics that I identify as part of my own, I can only do so in relation to others, right? In relation to other people. Psychologically, it seems you have a background in psychology. Does that make sense in terms of modern psychology? Does modern psychology explain something like that? That our sense of identity is dependent on comparing ourselves to others? Is there something like that? Have you heard about that? No, okay. Does it make sense though? I thought I read this somewhere, but I could be wrong and I don't remember. But yes, really it's like, without others, we had nothing to compare it to. Did you want to add something, Gal?
You mentioned before that there is the I that exists and I that is not exist.
I mentioned there's an I that exists and an I that doesn't. Yes, absolutely.
So where is the one who exists? We want to find it.
I won't tell you yet. So there's an I that exists. I not in like, I like the letter I, not I. There's an I that exists and an I that doesn't exist. Yeah, well, that's your job now. Figuring out which is the one that exists and which one is the one that doesn't. But maybe that's too early for the discussion group. We need to get more into that. But for the discussion group, I hope it's clear. But yeah, so Gal just threw something into the room. Knock yourself out if you want to discuss it. You're very welcome. What is the I that does exist and what is the I that doesn't? Yeah. Good point. Okay, great. Please, Gita, yeah.
I think that the perception of I must also be relative, as we just spoke to Ashwin, because whenever...
You talk to who?
Ashwin.
Ashim?
Ashwin.
Ashwin? Shwen. Shwen.
A-S-H-W-I.
Your name, sorry, I get it wrong. Ashwin, yeah. Ashwin, yeah. So you talked to Ashwin. What did Ashwin say?
No, so Ashwin said he's not sure about I being relative, but I feel that if, according to what you spoke about the spoon yesterday, you said if there's a spoon and you want to know whether it's short or long, there has to be another a standard to somewhere to, so that everything is relative.
Yes, very good. Everything is relative as well. So Gita makes a very good point, Ashwin, and both making this point about, like a spoon, in order to determine whether it's long or short, you need to have something else to compare it to. So you need something in related, yes, absolutely, to know who you are. And just the I is only possible if there's only you. You don't have to refer to I. I mean, besides the fact that we wouldn't be able to survive if it was only us, but ignoring that, if there really was only one living being and that was us, why would we refer to I? Wouldn't we, right? So therefore, I and everything we do is only possible because there are others, right? I mean, I can only exist the way I do now because there are others. And others are therefore equally important. Going back to, why do I believe that I is more important? My original argument was, and that's usually how it feels, because I look after myself. I'm the one that keeps me alive. I'm the one that keeps me... But everyone else is equally involved in that process, right? That's why we're doing this here. This is more to bring reality to a level such that we can develop love and compassion for others. To walk away from, to step away from, Ashwin used that term, I really like it, I'll now use it, step away from. I like that, you said like step away from getting, in terms of empathy, use that word. I like that, stepping away. So we need to step away, we need to move away from our constant obsession with the self by understanding Others are equally important to my well-being. What's your name? Tyler. Okay. You look like a Tyler. I knew someone from the Emory course who looked like you, so Tyler, his name is.
Yeah, I just want to add a comment. Like,
Yeah.
for me, I've been thinking a lot about emptiness and listening to lots of podcasts. And what was really helpful was kind of first having the realization of like dependent rising. And like one of the exercises too, it's like we all know Deepak differently. We all have this different description. And Deepak wakes up one morning and he got great 8 hours of sleep. He probably has this amazing perception of himself. And then later in the afternoon, does something clumsy or whatever, and is going to have a different perception. All these different perceptions, which one's correct? Where is the Deepakness in that? And I thought that, and my last teacher was like, oh yeah, once you get to a realization through meditation first, right, not actualizing this in life, of the dependent rising, you're like 90% of the way there to emptiness. So it was really helpful for me to like really think about everything as dependent rising and in meditation. And then you're getting kind of closer on your journey.
You know what I like to do? I like to not mention dependent rising in the beginning. I tell you why.
Interesting.
I'd like to, because what I've noticed is that sometimes what happens is, and of course it needs to be mentioned, and we will sooner or later, but I like to start with identifying that which we're trying to negate. Why? Because what happens oftentimes, we're not very good at negating things. We don't like it. We like to affirm. We like to look at things from a positive angle. In fact, there's some people who think you can't know a negative. I've heard that comment again and again. You can't know a negative. Of course you can know a negative. You can know someone who's gone into remission of cancer. It's a negative, basically. So we can know negatives. But oftentimes what happens is people learn about emptiness, okay, they negate a little bit, and they can't wait until, dependent arising, because there's something affirming. And then their dependent arising becomes inherently existent, and it no longer works. It no longer works. It no longer works. Because, I tell you why. One very common question is this. Very common. Now, you're probably going to take it over. When we say everything is merely labeled, then people say, when we will leave this room, we're all out of this room. Does this room stop to exist because we're not labeling right now? No one is labeling. If no one is in the room, then does this go out of existence? That would mean that being merely labeled is inherently labeled. That may not be clear yet, but we see suddenly contradictions. A place that no one has ever gone to, does it exist or not? There's no one who's labeling it, right? So it's like one of those very profound statements. Everything exists because it is labeled. But if no one is labeling, does it mean it doesn't exist? That's the problem. That's really, so actually, if it were inherently labeled, then yes, every time something exists, in that moment someone must be labeling it. But being merely labeled means it's like, for instance, let's say this was a kilo. I don't know, it's not a kilo. Okay, let's use this. Let's say, this is also not a kilo, but let's say it's a kilo, right? For that to be a kilo, does everyone have to measure it every time to make it a kilo? Or is it enough to say, if someone were to measure it, then it would be a kilo? It's still a kilo, you don't have to measure it all the time. So similarly, phenomena are merely labeled, but it doesn't mean you have to label all the time for it to exist in that moment. Even if you label later on, for instance, there's one example of the different Dalai Lamas. There have been 14 so far. The present Dalai Lama is the 14th. The first one, the first Dalai Lama, was actually called Gyalwa Gendun Drub. That was his name. Gyalwa is like an honorific, and Gendun Drub was his name. And the first Dalai Lama wasn't called Dalai Lama. No one referred to him as the Dalai Lama. Only at the time of the third Dalai Lama, who was strongly connected to one of the Khans, not Genghis Khan, one of the Khans in Mongolia. He was a teacher, was a student of the third Dalai Lama, and he called him ocean, the Lama who's like an ocean of wisdom, right? Dalai means ocean, Lama is the word for, right? So he called him Dalai Lama. Dalai is Mongolian for ocean. So he called him Dalai Lama. And because they knew he was the reincarnation of the of the two previous ones. The ones before they didn't pay attention to. So Gyaltsen Drup and the one after, they knew that they were the previous incarnation. So they called them posthumously, you could say, first and second Dalai Lama. No one ever at the time when they existed called them that. No one, and still they are qualified to be called Dalai Lama. Even though at the time when they existed, no one referred to them as that. So if phenomena existed inherently, then labeling would exist inherently, right? If labeling also existed, and that would mean the first Dalai Lama would not be a Dalai Lama, because then you have to label in that very moment. Then you couldn't say that the cause of the sprout exists before the sprout. Because then you would have to say, how can you refer to it as the cause of the sprout if there's no sprout? How can you label, how can you, they must exist at the same time. To have the cause of the sprout, you must have the sprout, but that's not true. You don't need to have the cause, you don't need to have the sprout when you have the cause of the sprout. You don't need to have a tree when you have the cause of the tree. In fact, at the time of the tree, but if they existed inherently, you couldn't just say, oh, there's a sprout, you have a cause of a sprout, without there being an actual sprout. You see what I'm saying? Things become very limited. That may not be clear to many of you right now. That's a difficult point. That is actually explained in the first chapter of a text called Mula Madhyamika Karika by Nagarjuna, Fundamental Wisdom. He argues exactly along these lines. The first chapter is about causes and conditions, and there it talks about the cause of something. So if that something doesn't exist yet, can the cause exist? Can you say it's the cause of that if that is not there yet? Well, yeah. If it doesn't exist inherently, you can say. If it exists inherently, you can't. So it's very similar, that argument. Yeah. So even though no one calls him the Dalai Lama, he still is. But to really fully understand that, we first need to negate enough before we, right? And we have that tendency. Yeah, emptiness. Okay, are we done? Are we done? Are we done? Dependent arising? Yes. Right? Because we're so used to affirming. And we're all like that. I'd love to hear about dependent arising. Emptiness is like negating. We don't do this naturally. We don't negate naturally. We don't think in negatives. But here we need to do. So I haven't really mentioned it, but we still need to.
Sorry if I put us off track there. Apologies.
No, I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to say why I don't mention it.
Okay.
So I'm glad you did.
That's helpful.
I'm glad you did. Otherwise, I would have forgotten to say that. But you reminded me of it, so thank you. Great. Okay, we're done for today. Let's, of course, take a moment before going for dinner. Let's take a moment to just that one prayer on page 31. But what's more important is, of course, our attitude, our mind of truly dedicating. So to think, may whatever positive potential we've accumulated here today, may that not get lost by, for instance, getting angry and destroying that positive potential through our anger, or may it not ripen in some insignificant positive experience, but rather become one of the many causes we need to accumulate in the form of what's called merit, so that in the future, at some point, it'll become easier for us to understand ultimate reality, and that in turn then enables us to eliminate our root misconception, give or make space in our mind for endless love and compassion for all sentient beings, so that we are of the greatest benefit to ourselves and others. And so, with this in mind, let's recite the prayer. May the precious bodhicitta arise, if not yet born. When generated, may it never diminish, but increase more and more. All right, thank you, and have a good evening.